Hey guys. Hey guys. I had a lot going on this week, so unfortunately there is no new upload. But instead, I have a compilation video for you with the best Steel, Normal, and Fighting type Pokemon for every game up until Sword and Shield. I made these videos a few years back and feel like they still hold true. But who knows? I might come back and redo them after Legends Arceus releases. But who knows? I might come back and redo them after Legends ZA releases. With that though, next week I will have another alternate best team for you. With that though, next week I will have another alternate starter best team. But until then, I hope you guys enjoy this compilation, and also hope some of these mons can help your playthrough teams feel a bit more powerful. Great list. Let's get started with red, blue, and yellow. Now, there are a handful of fighting type options in the first generation of Pokemon, and none of them are incredibly difficult to get. You can get a Mankey easily in Pokemon Red and Yellow, and then one of the Hitmons is effectively given to you for free in Saffron City. There is always Poliwrath too, but I don't really throw my weight behind that one. Now, in these first releases, any of those fellas can put in some work for you. However, I think we all know that the best fighting type for the first generation is the superpower Pokemon, Machamp. It has 130 base attack, and that 80 base defense could really play back in Kanto during the 90s. Low kick, despite being only base 50 power, will really hit super hard. And if you end up deciding to use submission and eat the recoil damage, it's gonna hit hard too. The only downside to Machamp is its speed, and the others have it beat there, which is just incredibly important in the first generation. But I think the raw power behind Machamp is enough to justify it as the best play for red, blue, and yellow. So what is the answer for gold, silver, and crystal? Well, a lot of you are probably figuring I'd say Heracross. It's a great Pokemon, sure, but as a fighting type in its debut game, I don't think it holds a candle to Machamp. Its move pool gets better in the second generation with Karate Chop, Vital Throw, and Cross Chop available now. You can get a lot out of using Machamp in this release, and of course, the Machop you get in Goldenrod helps out big when taking on Miltank. I thoroughly endorse using the superpower Pokemon here in Gen 2 as well. So, with the third generation, it's really easy. Blaziken, as a whole, is the best fighting Pokemon you can get, and of course, it's one of the starter options. It's the same as on the water type rankings where we put Swampert as the best water type for Hoenn. So obviously, I'm more than willing to say a starter is the best option. You can get some great power out of Blaziken's 120 attack and 110 special attack considering there isn't a split in the games. Its fighting type moves are pretty good. Access to Double Kick and Brick Break are nice, and those fire type moves are even better with Flamethrower and Fire Blast and whatnot. Its stab moves are hard hitters, and it's just a tried and true good Pokemon. Alright. Fire Red and Leaf Green? It's what you'd expect. Machamp, once again. It's strong, it's got better moves from a third gen, and now it has the ability Guts, so it can possibly be even stronger when it's still a status ability. So now, it's Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. And yeah, it's another starter. It's my man, Infernape. And much like Blaziken, it leads the charge as the best fighting type in its region. It's got close combat, flare blitz, and a slew of wonderful moves in the pool for coverage. The special attack and attack on this thing are both 104, so it can be a mixed attacker. And it even has great 108 speed. So honestly, if you'd rather run Flamethrower or Focus Blast, it's very viable. It has tremendous flexibility as a fighting type, and obviously it'll definitely be in the conversation when we talk fire types down the line. Access to Earthquake and Shadow Claw offer good coverage, and Stone Edge would work nicely for flying types. I think I've sort of said it all at this point about Infernape, but man, is it able to justify its spot just by existing. We'll stop real quick in Johto once again with Heart Gold and Soul Silver. And once again, I'm giving it up for Machamp here as it now has access to close combat if you choose to breed yourself a Machop. And even without that, there are still some nice fighting type moves it can learn by level up, and of course Brick Break via TM. It's a great one, and these remakes boast the best Machamp up to this point of the few I've already talked about. I always enjoy getting into Black and White because there are only Univin Pokemon to choose from, and there are a few options in this release. How about Sock and Throw? They might be terrible competitively, as I so greatly illustrated in my worst fighting types video, but they might not be so bad in-game. There is Scrafty and Miancho, so why not them? I mean, we could always continue the streak of fire fighting starters being the best fighting type in a region and talk about Emboar. Well, the truth is, none of them are the answer here. No. Instead, it's another fighting type that needs to be traded to evolve your boy and mine, Conkeldurr. It's a really strong Pokemon with access to moves like Hammer Arm and Bulk Up, which can set it up. If you feel so inclined as to breed a Timber, you can even get Drain Punch on this thing. It can use Earthquake for coverage, as well as Stone Edge for those pesky flying types. Look no further than Conkeldurr and Unova for these releases. Now, when you look at the other Unova released, Black and White 2, well, now it's no longer all about Conkeldurr. There's a lot of other Pokemon added in, including Heracross and Toxicroak. But what else is there? Well, I will tell you this much. The only other fighting type added in is the one that's the best to use for these games. Conkeldurr is a very close second, but you can't deny that Lucario is the fighting type for this release. You can get Riolu so early in the game at Focusy Ranch, and then when it evolves into Lucario, you've got a Pokemon with base 110 attack and 115 special attack. Thus, it is a flexible Pokemon to use in a playthrough. It can learn Dark Pulse via Move Relearner, Close Combat and Aura Sphere are both stab options it can get, and Metal Claw is still a solid move, even if it isn't the strongest Steel type move out there. Lucario is the wave here in these games. And if you disagree, I can understand. You know where I can't allow you to disagree with me though? Well, that's an X and Y, where Lucario is once again the best fighting type. So not only are you gifted a Lucario right after you obtain your 3rd gym badge, but you can also Mega Evolve it immediately. That means base 145 attack and 140 special. A very solid 112 base speed as well. This thing is hands down one of the best Pokemon you can use in X and Y period, let alone the best fighting type. It can use Close Combat and Aura Sphere, it can set up with Calm Mind or Bulk Up, it can do a ton. If you think there's truly a better fighting type to use in Kalos, let me know in the comments down below. I would absolutely love to hear that argument. Alright, in Oras, it's once again Blaziken, just like in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. I mean, it's even 100 times better. Guys, it has access to a Mega Evolution that was banned in competitive play. It's so good, it couldn't even be used in competitive. So what does that say about in a playthrough? Access to Speed Boost, moves like Flare Blitz, Close Combat, and Brave Bird being learnable? I don't even think I should talk about this anymore, simply because it's a Pokemon that sells itself on the fact that it was so good, they banned it. As a matter of fact, it's probably the best we'll talk about in this video. So now we're in Alola, and for Sun and Moon, I definitely had a lot of options. There are new Pokemon like Bewear and Passimian, then some older Pokemon like Hariyama and Primeape. However, I again have to go with a beloved, tried and true option from this list, Machamp. Now, I looked right at Bewear as well as an option, but I just don't think it offers the same all-around experience that Machamp does. All the same things I brought up last time I talked about apply here. Access to great fighting moves by level up, and if you want to breed, you can get a move like Close Combat on your Machamp. It's a shame there is no move tutor in the same vein as the Ultra games, since you could have given it the elemental punches as well. But it is what it is. Machamp is the best of the bunch here. But is that the same for the Ultra games? Well, first before then, I'll just quickly say that it is in fact the best option in Let's Go. There's really no reason to not believe it isn't. Though in the Ultra games, I actually went with a different Pokemon. One of my favorites for playthroughs, Hawlucha. It's better than Machamp for a few small reasons, including its access to Flying Press, which is just such a great move. It can get all the elemental punches, minus Ice, Iron Head, and Rock Slide, among a ton of other nice moves. It's got the coverage, speed, and power that can greatly be appreciated in Alola, and thus for the Ultra games, it's the pick. Alright, so we'll wrap things up in Galar. And this time, I have a DLC and non-DLC pick for you guys. I'll start with the non-DLC pick, and it's going to be Lucario once again. Machamp, Conkeldurr, and Hawlucha are all options too here, but I couldn't shake the fact that Lucario provides great fighting and steel coverage, as well as the elemental punches and Earthquake. It's so easy to learn moves in Galar that it's definitely justified to call it the best fighting type option in Galar. If only all the non-legendary fighting types added into Sword and Shield weren't bad. Oh, hold on a second. As we move onto the DLC option, you do have the chance to use a legendary Pokemon. If my research is correct, you can get your hands on Urshifu way earlier than any legendary Pokemon in Sword and Shield. You can go right to the Isle of Armor relatively early on. And if you play through that story and get Kubfu, you'll be able to evolve it at the particular tower you choose into Urshifu. And boom, around level 30, you'll have it after you beat Mustard. That leaves you with a bunch of playing time in Galar to use this legendary fighting type on your team. And surely, that must sound great to some of you. I believe that's all correct. And if for some reason it isn't, then I know you will let me know in the comments. Starting off the list, we have the original region itself, Pokemon Red, Blue, Green, and Yellow. The best normal type for these games is none other than Snorlax, the behemoth of Route 12 and 16. While Snorlax doesn't have the luxuries of other normals, such as gaining Fly like Pidgeot, or having a high speed to get a better critical hit chance like Persian can, Snorlax has a wide variety of available moves in its disposal. Not only this, but with a combined special stat this generation, you have yourself a Pokemon that can abuse the move Amnesia to not only boost its offense, but its defense. Snorlax is easily one of the bulkiest Pokemon this gen, and this buff to attacks like Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, and many more is only more beneficial while spamming Amnesia to make yourself bulkier as well. Not only this, but Snorlax, similarly to other normals like Persian, has Payday in this gen, which can be used during your run to farm for money to buy Pokeballs or potions. Snorlax doesn't really struggle or thrive better or worse in any area of this game barring the Fighting Dojo, but barring the flying normal types, there aren't any who would necessarily handle this better than Snorlax anyway. Overall, Snorlax is one of the best normal types in general, and easily the best of the Generation 1 games. Going into the next set of games, being Gold, Silver, and Crystal, we have a bit of a tricky situation. While Snorlax is still the best normal type in this game, you don't actually get this Pokemon for a majority of your adventure, as you only get it during the Kanto post-game. Because of this, I have decided that for these games, we will be discussing Miltank. Miltank is a very terrifying Pokemon, however, with a plethora of options such as Earthquake, Shadow Ball, Milk Drink, and many more annoying options at its disposal. Miltank's coverage should be able to handle most if not all bosses barring Chuck in this game. Even Jasmine, who loses pretty instantly, you should have a single coverage option for her team by now. This Pokemon also has a lot of natural bulk and offense to it with a great speed tier for the generation. Base 100 in this gen would essentially be the same as having a Pokemon that was, let's say, 120 in Generation 8. So having a Pokemon with Miltank's typing, coverage, and stat line was pretty absurd in this gen. There's a reason this cow was super annoying on Whitney's team. Overall, Miltank definitely proves the top this generation as the most valuable normal type. Now we'll be getting into probably one of the hardest generations to decide for a good normal type. Covering a strong normal option in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald was not easy. However, I think I found an option that I would say is the most valuable. For this group of games, we have none other than Slacking, who is taking our spot of the best normal type for the Gen 3 games. If you look at the Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald Pokedex, it's pretty barren for valuable normal types. The only real contenders here were Swellow because of its role as an HM slave, Exploud because of its coverage and good offense and buff stats, or Slacking, which in my opinion, even with Truant in this gen, still trumps both. Slacking starts off at the top here due to a few key components, the first being its natural bulk. Even with Truant, Slacking is still able to chew hits from most opposing Pokemon in these games. Not only this, but similar to Miltank, Slacking has solid offensive potential too, with Slacking having a 160 base attack stat and 100 base speed stat. That's better stats than even Groudon, one of the cover legendaries of these games. The only factor holding Slacking back is its ability. Otherwise, this would arguably be a top Pokemon overall for the generation, let alone for normal standards. Sadly though, Truant does exist, which makes this a lot more debatable. However, I still believe it is at least better than the other normal options these games provided us. Also, if you're a Chugga Conroy fan, then you know all about the nose laser. I want to start off these next games by saying that while we covered red, blue, green, and yellow already on this list, there was enough of a distinction between games to make me also want to cover the best option for Fire Red and Leaf Green as well. While I still think Snorlax is the best Pokemon of these games, it's for much different reasons than we stated for the Generation 1 games. By these games, Snorlax has lost its buff with Amnesia, boosting its special coverage. However, it also in the process gained Curse, which helps it much more in the long run. Boosting its attack and defense, this allows Snorlax to provide a threatening output against teams on the physical side this generation for your playthrough, instead of its special coverage. Snorlax still has a lot of options, such as Shadow Ball, Earthquake, and Return, to name a few, in order to hit your opponents with. This set of moves, along with Curse, allows Snorlax to hit pretty much anything you'd possibly encounter, while boosting its weaker defensive stat as well. Snorlax doesn't particularly dominate against any gym or battle, more or less, to be honest. It just sort of dominates equally well against practically every area besides the Fighting Dojo. Snorlax arguably got better this generation, and that's why it still was able to keep up as the best normal type in Fire Red and Leaf Green. On to Generation 4, we now have our first dual type normal making the list. Staraptor takes the cake for Generation 4, with a pretty dominant hold on this ranking. I think what Staraptor provides to the Generation 4 experience cannot be understated, as it's able to fill so many roles for your team. Being able to learn both Fly and Defog provides immense utility here when talking about making your general experience of these games easier, as you'll be able to get past certain portions of the game at a much quicker pace due to these. Not only this, but Staraptor learning Close Combat and Brave Bird helps when taking into account you'll be able to have 2 hardening options with your normal stab in order to threaten matchups such as the first Elite Four Aaron, or having Close Combat for Byron's gym. Overall, Staraptor provides a lot through the convenience of its level up moveset and HMs alone, which is a very hard thing to find on a lot of Pokemon in a single roster slot, which is why it is the best normal type for this gen. We're gonna skip over Heart Gold and Soul Silver, due to the fact that nothing about why Miltank is good in these games changes, other than Shadow Ball being special now, but it's still the same rules. Now, we head over into Black and White and Black and White 2. For these games, we have none other than its resident normal dog, Stoutland. Stoutland gets a lot of backing in this generation, such as the ability to learn 2 HMs being Strength and Surf to allow for an easier in-game experience. Not only this, but you have a plethora of coverage options, such as Wild Charge and Rock Tomb, while also getting a range of normal attacks as well, such as Retaliate and Double Edge. Stoutland's abilities, being Intimidate and Sand Rush, also are both viable depending on the area of the game you're in, which helps only boost its viability in comparison to something like an Unpheasant that much more. Overall, while this Pokemon lacks any particularly strong gym matchups, this Pokemon rules over both of the Generation 5 games, even when taking Black and White 2's expanded Pokedex into account. Now we move from the DS to the 3DS, and cover Pokemon X and Y. In these games, we see the return of Miltank, Snorlax, and Staraptor, which are the 3 best normal types mentioned so far on this list, while adding in new options such as Heliolisk and Diggersby to the mix. Overall, this is currently by far the strongest generations for normal types we've seen yet. So which one takes the crown? I believe that this crown, while very contentious, goes to Staraptor. When taking into account bosses, such as Corina and Ramos's gyms, and the coverage it gets for options, such as Diantha's and Wickstrom's teams in the Elite Four, it was very close. But I believe, between these and the utility Staraptor provides, for options like Fly for transportation around this otherwise very complex map, is what gives Staraptor the edge for these games. I could see the case being made for Snorlax here as well, but I personally believe Staraptor provides a small edge over Snorlax due to the factors I mentioned above. Skipping over Oras as well, for the same reasons as Heart Gold and Soul Silver, with again, Slaking only really losing options like Shadow Ball and its viable move pool, we have none other than Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon. Just like with Black and White 2, I will be combining these, because even with Ultra Sun and Moon's expanded decks, my answer here is also the same. The best normal type this generation, I'd argue, is uncontested Beware. Being able to catch Stuffle on only the 2nd island is just great, as you'll be able to have this normal fighting type grow in your party into Beware just in time for Olivia's Grand Trial. Even if you still only have a Stuffle here, that's fine, because by the 3rd island, you'll certainly have evolved this Pokemon in order to truly devastate your opponents. Whether you're taking on Vikavolt or Togedemaru here on the first trial, you'll be able to either hit it with stab fighting attacks, for Togedemaru's case, or, by now, you should be able to go back to Melee C and get Rock Slide to help with Vikavolt, should you be playing regular Sun and Moon. Finally, before the E4, we have the Nanu trial, which, just like Olivia, should be a breeze, since that's a Dark-type trial, and barring Sableye, which can't touch you anyway, barring Power Gem and Fake Out. Literally nothing can wall your hits. Either way, you'll still also have bosses like the Elite Four, with regular Sun and Moon having Olivia again, while also having a great matchup versus Kukui as well. While in the Ultra variants, having Olivia, Molayne, and Hau, who you match up well versus all 3 of. This doesn't even include Team Skull, who get trampled by Beware, as well, seeing as they're fairly easily beaten by fighting rock options. Overall, Beware is probably the strongest normal for any in-game experience, but especially for these particular games. On to Let's Go, we have the best Generation 1 normal type making its 3rd appearance on this list. Our current highest marking Pokemon on this list being none other than Snorlax, who yet again rolls over the matchups here. Just like in previous Gen 1 games, due to the lack of a fighting gym or a steel type gym, the only scary area of this game is the fighting dojo. Snorlax makes out best in these games out of any, however, since you can utilize most of its red, blue, and yellow options, such as Ice Punch, Fire Punch, and Thunder Punch, while also getting options like Play Rough to help make these games only that much more of a breeze. You can basically teach Snorlax whatever coverage you need for an upcoming battle, and it will claim several kills, if not sweep it in these games. Snorlax is truly a monster in this generation, which is why it claims its third appearance here on the list in the Let's Go franchise. The final spot on this list goes to the only Pokemon who can contend with Snorlax for the best in-game normal, being Bewear. Bewear makes a return here due to the amount of boss battles it smashes through. You find Stuffle pretty early on over on Route 5 right after the first gym, which, to be fair, will probably be on the bench until it evolves. Bewear doesn't truly shine until Gym 6, but for the later portion of the game, Bewear goes from a backseat Pokemon to a real threat. Regardless of your version of choice, you'll face a good matchup in the 6th gym, whether you're taking on Melanie the Ice Leader or Gordy the Rock Leader. As we go to Spikemuth, you also have yet another good matchup against Pierce, especially his ace being Obstagoon. Finally, as far as gyms go, you also put a lot of pressure on Raihan, who has 2 mons weak to fighting, with Flygon and Sandaconda still able to be beaten pretty easily due to a lack of ways to reliably damage Bewear. Getting into the Champion Cup, we have Marnie, who barring Grimmsnarl has a bad time against Bewear. As well as Nessa's new team, you can at least Dynamax now. So fighting type Stab with Dynamax Bewear against her Gigantamax Dreadnought is actually pretty good. When fighting Raihan again, while the matchup isn't as easy to win, you still have, like Nessa, a free opportunity to Dynamax Bewear in order to muscle past Duraludon. Just beware of Torkoal and Turtonator, as especially if you're fluffy, they will hurt a bit. Overall, Bewear has too many good matchups to not make it the best option in these games. So, with this debut generation for the Steel typing, we had a few options to go with in these Johto games. I didn't really feel it would be Skarmory, and in the case of these games, it wasn't necessarily Magneton. Now, I feel as though the Pokemon to go with here is Steelix, as it has a much better move pool than Scizor. However, you need the metal coat to evolve an Onix, so you're gonna have to find one. The only way to get one before post-game is to catch a Magnemite holding one. You'll have to search Route 38 for one and roll the dice on it. Once you have the metal coat, you trade around Onix holding it and you'll have Steelix. So it'll be a little hard to get, but this is really early days Pokemon. What isn't hard to get? Steelix has amazing defenses, as we all know. Base 200 on the physical end, which is very nice. Its offenses are pretty nice too with the typing. It can learn Earthquake, it can get Iron Tail right after you beat Jasmine, and hey, Rock Throw isn't so bad. Steelix just offers some good stuff with the move pool it's got, and its defenses allow it to take some hits, which you've got to respect. Steelix had steel in its name for Arceus' sake. It had to be the choice. Next up, we have got our choice for Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, and this pick is going to be Aggron. It's a great choice, man. Aggron, much like Steelix, is a great defensive Pokemon. It's got 180 base defense, though in this case it's actually stronger, having base 110 attack. You're able to get access to Aron pretty early on at Granite Cave in Dewford, so you'll have your Steel type early. And by level 42, you'll have Aggron. Its move pool sells it well, with Metal Claw being available early on to Aron, and then moves like Earthquake and Rock Tomb backing that up. There are just some strong, useful moves in that pool of Aggron, and it really doesn't have to be explained much beyond that. It's a shame that Metagross isn't available, but we make do, no? There isn't much to say for Fire Red and Leaf Green. It's Magneton because that's the only Steel type. It doesn't get much out of its Steel typing here, but you know, Electric type moves out of it can be solid. Alright, so for Diamond and Pearl, I went with quantity of time over quality of battler in a way. Lucario could easily be chosen for these games, but you just get it so late in the game. Honestly, while I've chosen Bronzong for some best teams, and I've already sung the praises of Steelix in this video, I think going with Empoleon for Diamond and Pearl as the best Steel type is the correct course of action. You can get a lot of using Piplup in the early game, and at level 36, your Empoleon will be unlocked. It's got powerful water moves, of course, but also a great attacking Steel type move with Flash Cannon, and it can use Ice Beam for some powerful coverage. It just feels like the best Steel type to go with for longevity's sake. However, in Platinum, I think that Magnezone is the better Steel type to use in the long run. You can get access to Magnemite at the Fuego Ironworks after you get Surf, And then at level 30, when you have Magneton, you can easily head over to Mount Coronet and access the magnetic field, which causes it to evolve. Magnezone is super strong at base 130 special attack, and its move pool has 2 great stab moves in Flash Cannon and Discharge. It's worth it to pick Magnezone over Empoleon this time for the sake of it adding on the electric typing to the steel type, which would allow you to pursue better water type options than Empoleon. So, for Heart Gold and Soul Silver this time around, the answer I am going with isn't Steelix, but instead Scizor. See, things are a little better this time around on Scizor's move pool. So much so that it edges out the defensive beast in the Return the Johto. Its base 130 attack is obviously as great as its 100 base defense, but that 65 base speed is actually pretty decent compared to the other steel types in the region, which I feel is worth mentioning. Its move pool improves a bit from Gen 2, now having Bullet Punch, X-Scissor, and a few other very solid moves. Now, that said, Steelix is still a great choice, with a very nice move pool of its own. So if you're more sold on that being the best for these games, I can't fight you on that. It makes sense. For now though, the Technician that is Scizor is my pick for best Heart Gold and Soul Silver steel type. Alright, time for the highlight of the video. Black and White, where we are forced to pick from only a pool of Univin Pokemon. This wasn't exactly hard. You guys know the best answer already, so I'll keep it brief. It's Excadrill. The thing has Mole Breaker for an ability, base 135 attack, and it's available early enough that you can tear through a large portion of the game with it. You'll be able to use Earthquake, Metal Claw, Rock Slide, you name it. Don't look elsewhere at the steel typing in Unova among the general Pokemon population. You won't find better. Well, that's to say, don't look further among actual Univin Pokemon. When we talk about Black and White 2, it's a completely different story. And you guys know exactly where I'm going with this. You can get Riolu super early in the games, and that means Lucario is the pick for this entry. You can't go against Lucario under most normal circumstances, as it is such a varied and powerful Pokemon. You're basically handed Riolu in the early parts of these sequels on the ranch, and since you just need to build a friendship with it to get Lucario, you can have this steel type super early on. Close Combat and Aura Sphere are in the pool, though learned pretty late into things, so Brick Break and Force Palm are 2 moves that can be turned to for the fighting stab, while on the other end of things, there's Iron Tail for the really good steel stab if you don't want to do Metal Claw. It just depends on how much the low accuracy bothers you. Lucario is a beast, and even if you don't do too much with its steel typing, it's still the best steel type to go out and use for the long run. Okay, so for X and Y, the answer is either simple or stupid. If you want the stupid answer, it's Aegislash. You just have to enjoy enrolling the dice on Inver constantly to try and get a Duskstone on Route 18. However, if you're looking for the simple, more normal answer, it is again Lucario. You get it from Corina, it Mega Evolves, it's got good moves. Is there really anything else that needs to be said? Of course not. Alright, let's go to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, where I have 2 answers similar to the last videos in this series. So, for Omega Ruby, it's going to be Mawile, and for Alpha Sapphire, it is Aggron. Both of these Pokemon Mega Evolve, and in the case of Mawile, it goes from being useless to absolutely incredible when it does Mega Evolve. My god. As you know, it has a great typing, it gains huge power, and moves like Iron Head and Play Rough come out of the woodwork to put in some real power. You won't be able to Mega Evolve until after the 5th gym, but there are definitely some battles you can send Mawile in for, and it'll do well just based on its great typing. However, you've got to use Aggron and Alpha Sapphire, and that is just fine. It Mega Evolves too, it's got an enhanced move pool with stuff like Iron Head and Rock Slide, and you can get Auron in the same place you get Mawile. It's a fantastic secondary option for a game without Mawile, and I fully enforce using Aggron when you're looking for a steel type in almost any game if you aren't always trying to use the exact best. Alright, on the Sun and Moon, and Ultra Sun and Moon as well. A lot of factors went into my answer for these games. I had to think about how good a Pokemon was, the longevity, and the quality of other options. I came down to 1 Pokemon for both releases. And it might not be the most popular thing in the world, and I'm sure it'll cause a lot of conversation in the comments. I'm gonna go with Magnezone here. Now, looking over the steel types in Sun and Moon for a moment here, there's some really good ones, like Metagross, Lucario, and Scizor. So with those being there, how did I come with Magnezone? Well, it's quite simple really. You can get Magnemite at the start of the game. A big issue of Sun and Moon that was corrected in the Ultra games was where the magnetic field was. It's a bit later into things here, actually being in the same area where you can get Metang. It made a lot of sense to me though, to have Magnemite on a team early on, and then eventually turn into Magneton and evolve into Magnezone, instead of getting Metang at level 30 and training it all the way up to 45 so it can evolve. As we know, Metagross is very good, but I don't think the minimal amount of usage you'll get out of it overshadows having Magnezone and its line for the entirety of your playthrough. In Sun and Moon, it can use great moves like Discharge and Flash Cannon, which for sure plays in a region like Alola with several strong water and fairy types hanging about. It just makes sense to me for how long you can use this line for, and in turn, be the best steel type option. And honestly, it gets better in the Ultra games. Now, you've got move tutor moves like Electro Web, which can be used to help slow down opponents in a playthrough, and Magnet Rise, which gets rid of the most glaring weakness Magnezone has. If you guys want to think about using something like Alolan Trio, that's fine in a playthrough, unlike in competitive. It's actually pretty good with a strong move pool. I can understand that argument, but for me, I think it's Magnezone. Speaking of, Magneton is the play for Let's Go as well, for obvious reasons. Alright, so wrapping this up, we will talk about Sword and Shield here. There are so many Pokemon to choose from, but one is quite frankly above the rest due to something we've spoken about many times in this video already. It's available right at the start. It also helps that it is very good. Corviknight is nicely defensive and has a decent attack stat that plays well into its impressive move pool. We're talking Brave Bird, Iron Head, Body Press, you name it. It can really put up a great fight against a lot of gym leaders regardless of the version you're playing. And of course it can Gigantamax, which is a nice little bonus. It's sort of just a perfect storm for Corviknight because there are plenty of other steel types available later in the games like Lucario, Excadrill, Aegislash. All of those honestly, they're great. And if you think they're better steel types, then I'm pretty sure you couldn't go wrong with them. Though, for me, I really think that Corviknight is the best steel type you could use in a playthrough of Sword and Shield, and it's also very nice competitively. Let me know what you guys think down below. I want to hear your ops on this one. I'm sure this choice might ruffle a few Rowlet feathers, but I often like to give my opinion on some of these and then hear what you guys think.